following preview has been rated good bad by the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. Please check out the full episode when it releases on Sunday. This year, for Nic Cage November, the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast goes where no one's gone before. They dare to take the most precious national treasure of all time, the Declaration of Independence, in Nic Cage November 2022 National Treasure.
We stealing the Declaration?
Yeah, we're stealing the Declaration.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're finally getting to this one. This is
one of the most iconic roles.
Yeah, this one has probably been one that's been on our list for a while. It's actually, I think it was one of our first ones we talked about.
We did, but like we wanted a base of Cage to like understand him
before we went to this one. And that was the big thing, was that like when I was telling my friends that we were starting this podcast and we were going to do a Nic Cage November for the hell of it, they're like, "Oh, you doing National Treasure?" It's like, no.
He's done so much, and like everyone knows that he's in a lot of stuff, but when you ask people to think up like Nic Cage movies, this is always on the list.
Yeah.
Even though this is not one of his best performances or even one of his worst performances. This is very middle of the road.
And I think part of that is like just the accessibility of it. One, it being on Disney, and two, also just it being more well known overall compared to some of his other stuff. Because like you tell someone, oh, he's in a movie where he's fighting puppet animatronics and he doesn't say a single word of dialogue, people are like, the hell are you? Well, nowadays people are like, I'm not surprised.
Yes, but when like the Cage fever was really getting them going, like not only was this movie easy to get a hold of, but like back in the day, this is one of the few Cage ones that like everyone was like, yeah, it's a kid's film, it's fine. So,
yeah.
But it also wasn't like a child's film. You can get away with watching this as an adult and still be entertained.
Exactly. And I mean, like we talked about in our main episode, this was a lot of people's introduction to Cage movies. Not surprising, not my introduction to Nic Cage, but
when have you ever followed the norm curve for movies?
When I was a kid.
Not for Cage.
I mean, to a point. I mean, granted, I lived overseas, so like what we got was what we got. So like,
sure, yeah,
limited.
And like for me, a lot of the movies were dictated by like what either I could get away with watching at a friend's house, which honestly really wasn't that much. Like we got away with some stuff, but we were at my house a lot of the time, and our rules, while not super strict, like we wouldn't have been able to get away with most of Nic Cage's films when I was a kid. This one was fine, so we watched it a lot.
Yeah, and I probably should have done some digging on this, because I wonder if this is in the era of like actors' careers where they try and go kid friendly.
I think this was part of Nic Cage's wave of movies where he started like really just kind of cranking stuff out hard.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you're going to look into movies that are cranking hard, your two like main departments of movies are going to be dumb horror films or kid films, because those are the ones that make the most like quick paced, let's get this stuff out the door.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't mention it in our main episode, but this movie did lead Cage to do a search for the Holy Grail himself.
Yeah.
Because he had the money to do it.
Yeah, back then.
Yeah, which I do like the sentiment. He came to realize that like the Holy Grail is the Earth.
Yes. I appreciate that, like, in his own artsy way, he came back around to what his character knew all along. That it's all just for the good of the love.
Yeah, pursuing what you love. And well, and that's the weird thing too, because this movie, from what we know of Cage, really fits him, because
it really does.
It's a passion movie, and we know Cage as a passionate actor who, even though he does take bad roles, he takes stuff that interests him.
Yes, and like he likes acting in hero films. We know that. We know he likes doing some action, even though it's not necessarily like his top favorite. And we also know that he enjoys doing a romance role, and this is kind of all three. Yeah.
I mean, it's... Yeah, because by this point, and it's not your standard romance either, because, like, we know from doing Vampire's Kiss that Cage did that movie to break away from being the romantic roles, like in Moonstruck.
Yeah, and he likes playing a character that, like, interests him, which is usually some sort of hero. And this movie has a very interesting hero, a hero that's so good he must do bad.
Yeah, he's like we brought up, he's kind of like a JoJo character where there's
Yes.
at least the first JoJo where they're so pure and good-hearted.
That they have to be the one to break the law to save others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely, from a perspective of us going through Cage movies, it's a weird, middle-of-the-road meh movie.
It is, but somehow I still enjoy it very much. Normally meh movies for me get put kind of far on the back burner. I'd much rather watch a really bad film or a really great film.
Yeah.
But this one somehow still manages to make its way back around for me, and part of it's because of nostalgia. I watched it a lot as a kid, but I think another part of it is because there's this action-packed bro-esque-ness to the entire movie that you don't normally see in, like, clean kid films that I really like. We've talked about how I like action films for how dumb and bro-y they are.
Yeah.
This one's not really dumb, but it does hit a lot of the bro-y moments with, especially the dialogue.
Oh, God. Yeah. And, I mean, that's the thing is, like, the movie has some clever moments in, like, naming of the characters.
Oh, sure.
Like, the main Gates family. But other than that, like,
the puzzles are, you know, elementary school level difficult.
Yeah.
The only thing that's really, like, truly difficult about them is if you actually know your history, it could have been a lot of things.
Yeah.
They just got really lucky finding all of the right clues.
Oh, and it's like how you said, they basically, the clues were written knowing where the next location was going to be, so, like, they catered, like...
It's very much a string of events.
Yeah.
But like you said in the episode, I do like a lot that the, like, internal monologue of the characters, especially Nic Cage's, whose character's meant to be, like, the smartest and cleverest, it's all out external. So, like, there's no mystery for the audience as to what's next. You're not surprised when they show up at the next historical monument because the characters explain the logic to you.
Yeah, and they're explaining why they're going to steal the Declaration to begin with.
And while sometimes that's cheesy, I do like that in this movie because it doesn't feel like a cheap murder mystery where, like, you never would have known this was coming.
Yeah, or it doesn't feel like one that's, well, no, I can't even compare it to, like, Knives Out because well, it is, in a way, it is kind of like Knives Out, where Knives Out, you know the end, but you're working your way of trying to figure out around it rather than not knowing anything about it, and like like in your stereotypical Perot movie.
Exactly. I like that this one leads the audience through it, and I also like that, unlike the Da Vinci Code, where the clues are trying to be too difficult in the Da Vinci Code, where they're trying to be like, oh, no one but the smartest and cleverest could possibly solve
Unless
this.
you studied symbology, you'd have no idea.
Exactly. This one, they are trying to make the characters smart, but honestly, because the puzzles are, you know, fairly easy, it does make the audience feel like they can follow along without feeling like the character is unrelatable.
Yeah.
And I think they do that well.
Yeah, again, it was a movie that was more catered towards kids, obviously.
Of course.
It's Disney. We're not in the 80s where Disney was trying to do more mature things.
No, and we haven't rolled back around to like, oh, kid movies are either really dumb or like for the parents. This one's nicely in the middle. It's fun. It kind of reminds me of the same genre as like Night at the Museum.
Yes.
It's fun, it's goofy, it's got a lot of like good witty one-liners. Nothing too extreme, but yeah, it's entertaining at least. And it's fast-paced, which helps.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, It is
a very okay movie, but...
Yeah, it's a Cage movie.
It's a Cage movie, and honestly, yeah, like, this is what people remember him for, because, yeah, it's a very accessible movie.
Yeah, so... But, anyway, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird previews.
Check out the full episode.
Peace!